Here's something nobody tells you about running away. Every place you arrive at comes with one unwelcome passenger: you. Last year, someone spent $8,000 on a one-way ticket to Thailand. Not for vacation, not for adventure. They were convinced moving to the other side of the world would finally solve their anxiety. 3 months later, they were having the same panic attacks, just with better weather. The location changed, the scenery was stunning, but that tightness in their chest at 3 a.m., that followed them across 12 time zones. Psychologists call this the geographical cure. Research shows it doesn't work the way we desperately want it to, but we all do versions of this every day. Different city, different relationship, different job. We keep changing the scenery, hoping the internal movie will somehow rewrite itself. So why doesn't it work? Let's look at what happens in your brain. Right before you decide to leave everything behind, your mind whispers a beautiful lie. Everything will be different there. But this isn't a logical decision. Researchers call it experiential avoidance, our unwillingness to stay in contact with uncomfortable feelings. And studies link this impulse to depression and anxiety, because the more we avoid our internal experiences, the more power they gain over us. It's a cruel paradox. Every time you successfully avoid feeling something difficult, your brain gives you a hit of temporary relief.
That relief teaches your brain to repeat the avoidance. Soon, you're not just avoiding the original problem, you're avoiding the possibility of the problem. Think about ghosting someone instead of having a hard conversation, or scrolling for hours to avoid thinking about your career. We're not escaping the situation, we're escaping the feeling we might have if we stayed. But here's the interesting part. The geographical cure does work for about 6 months. Researchers call it the honeymoon period. When you first arrive in a new place, your brain is genuinely distracted. New streets to learn, new people to meet, new systems to figure out. Your attention is consumed by logistics, and you genuinely feel better. You think, finally, I've outrun my problems. Except you haven't. What ends the honeymoon period isn't the new place becoming familiar. It's that once the external novelty fades, your internal world reasserts itself. The same thought patterns return. The same emotional triggers resurface. Because the truth is, you didn't leave your problems in your old city. You brought them with you. They were never attached to the place, they were attached to you. One psychologist says, moving without doing internal work just delays the real healing, making you even less prepared when the old feelings return. So what are we actually running from? It's not the circumstances, it's shame. Shame is the feeling that something is fundamentally wrong with us, not that we made a mistake, but that we are the mistake. It's the feeling that convinces you that if you could just start over somewhere new, where nobody knows your history, you could finally be the person you're supposed to be. Research shows it's one of the most powerful drivers of avoidance. People move cities to escape the shame of failure. They end relationships to avoid the shame of being truly seen. And shame is insidious. It convinces you the problem is external. It points at your job, your city, your friends, and says, that's what's wrong. And this is why the geographical cure feels so logical. But shame isn't about your surroundings. It's about how you see yourself. And that internal lens travels with you. It sits in the passenger seat on the flight to your new city. It unpacks its bags in your new apartment. And until you face it, changing your circumstances is just rearranging the furniture in a house that's built on shaky ground.
Have you ever had that fantasy? Packing one bag, buying a one-way ticket, and just leaving? Starting fresh somewhere new where nobody knows your name? It's a powerful idea, the belief that a change of scenery can change your life. But it's also one of the most common traps we fall into. Because let's be clear, I'm not saying you should never leave a bad situation. If you're in a toxic environment or an abusive relationship, getting out is essential. The real question isn't if you should leave, but why. Are you moving toward a genuine opportunity, or are you just trying to outrun yourself? Are you making a conscious choice for growth, or are you desperately hoping a new city will do the internal work for you? Research on life transitions is fascinatingly clear on this. The people who thrive after a major change are the ones who approach it with self-awareness. They know what baggage they're packing. They've identified the internal patterns they want to break. For them, the external move becomes a catalyst for the internal shift they were already working on. But for those who struggle, they expect the new place to be the magic cure. They arrive in their new apartment and their new job, and they wait. They wait for the transformation to happen to them. And when it doesn't, when they find themselves feeling the exact same anxieties and insecurities, they sink into despair, or they start planning their next escape. Changing your circumstances without changing yourself is like repainting a car that has engine problems.
It might look different, but it's not going to run any better. So, what's the answer? The counterintuitive solution comes from psychology. Instead of running from uncomfortable feelings, you have to learn to stay present with them. Not because suffering is noble, but because turning towards your internal experience actually reduces its power over you. Think about exposure therapy. When someone with a phobia is gradually exposed to what they fear, their anxiety diminishes. Not because the feared thing becomes less scary, but because the person develops the capacity to feel fear without an immediate need to escape. The same principle applies to our emotions. When you practice sitting with disappointment, or shame, or grief, instead of immediately distracting yourself, something incredible happens. The feelings don't destroy you, they move through you. They become information, not threats. You create a tiny space between the emotion and your reaction. In that space, you can ask a crucial question. Is this feeling telling me something true about my reality right now? Or is it just an echo from my past? The most powerful thing you can do isn't to stop running entirely. It's to understand what you're running from. Once you recognize that the same discomfort follows you no matter the zip code, you gain a choice you didn't have before. You can turn around. This is where non-judgmental self-awareness becomes your superpower. It's the ability to simply notice your patterns. To catch that moment when your brain says, everything will be better if I just burn this all down and start over. You can see that impulse not as a command, but as a coping mechanism you developed long ago. And with that awareness, your options expand. You can choose to stay and work through something difficult, or you can choose to leave for the right reasons, with a clear vision of what you're walking toward. The geographical cure fails because it's based on a misunderstanding. We think we're running from our jobs, our cities, our relationships, but we're actually running from ourselves, from the parts of us that feel inadequate or afraid or unloved. And no matter how fast you run, those parts are sprinting right alongside you. Sometimes they even get there first, waiting to greet you with the same old feelings in a brand new setting. The way out isn't to stop moving. It's to realize that movement without internal change is just motion, not progress. When you finally stop running and face yourself, you realize it's not as overwhelming as you feared. You can finally build something that lasts, a life based on presence, not escape. The ultimate question isn't whether you should change your circumstances. It's whether you're willing to change yourself, because that's the only move that actually gets you somewhere new.